And we are running. Hello and welcome to the CDA YouTube channel. Today we are discussing dyslexia and casting with casting director Andrea Clark.
Hiya.
And casting director Nikki Meadows.
Hello.
And I'm Brendan McNamara from Beach Casting. So thank you so much for all the questions you posted on Twitter. And we are going to jump straight into it here, folks. So, question that was asked by a lot of people and was top really of the questions that came in was, should I tell a casting director before that I'm dyslexic? And I'm going to open that up to Andrea.
First of all, I'm going to say I am dyslexic myself, so I understand a lot of what the actors are going through. Although I've never been an actor myself, I do have to kind of do cold readings and everything when we're doing casting sessions. So although I don't feel completely what they're getting, I do have a vague idea. Mm-hmm. And in answer to the question, yes, I always would like to know if somebody is dyslexic, and I'd like to know from as soon as I call them in, because then I can tailor how I run the session and how I deal with that particular actor mm-hmm. to how I think their needs for the casting are going to need to run, as it were. I don't know, what do you think, Nikki?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think with any sort of additional need or anything that kind of affects an actor's kind of confidence and how they're going to come into the room, I'd always want to know about that. So something like dyslexia, yeah, definitely. I would certainly, I mean, I'm quite lucky in that we often do get the scripts for drama, we do get the scripts ahead. So I'm usually able to give people quite a lot of time. So perhaps, you know, that sort of, I don't often hear this, and I don't know if that's because it's happening like that, so they're getting enough time to prep, but I would definitely want to know. I would definitely want to know so we can do exactly that, bring people in at the top if that's easier for them in terms of concentration, or, you know, however we can work to kind of support that so that people come in confident, ready to, you know, do their best audition, really. I know, obviously, it's slightly different with commercials. So, Brendan, what would you say on that front?
Yeah, I mean, as always, there are time constraints with casting sessions, but if we know about it beforehand, then we can accommodate. You know, bottom line is we want you guys to do a brilliant audition. We want you to be great. We don't benefit from you not doing a good audition. So if we can help in any way, whether it's getting you in that little bit earlier or, you know, getting you more time, we will do that. Because one of the things I would say is, you know, I've often said to an actor, if a director has thrown something to them cold, you know, go downstairs, take some time. You know, and often an actor say, no, I'm grand. I'll just have a look at it here. But I always think they should take that time.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, mm-hmm. I do exactly that. And often I'll have those conversations with directors as well. If they suddenly throw a curveball the night before, I'll try and steer that away and say, no, let's not do that. We gave this script, you know, 3 days ago. I know it's slightly changed for you, but let's, for the purposes of the casting, you know, there'll be a flow, there'll be a rhythm that they've got into, whether they're dyslexic or not on that script. So let's not suddenly kind of put them on the back foot the day before. So yeah, 100%. I think we would always want to know, and we would always want to support in whatever way we could.
And also I would always say to actors in that kind of situation, if we have to throw a cold read at you, because there will be times where that will happen, give me a heads up. I won't make you read directly in the room. You can go away, and I would say don't stay in the waiting room, go around the corner to a coffee shop. If you're surrounded by a lot of other actors who are just kind of like really comfortable with cold reading and they're just like flicking through it, you're going to feel really self-conscious, and it's the nerves are going to get to you. So I would just say, right, I'll be back in half an hour. I'm going to go and sit in, you know, the local coffee shop and just calmly go through this.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, not with the distraction of a busy, I mean, people chatting and, like you say, maybe not needing that quiet time quite as much. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy for agents to be noting that on submissions as well. For me personally, it would never go against someone. It would certainly help me to know that perhaps, you know, if there was something like a late call in, I'd make sure there wasn't for that person. You know?
Yeah, and I think this, to sum up on that question, guys, if we know, we can help you. Yeah. You know, don't suffer in silence, you know, and don't leave thinking I should have said it. Just say it, you know, just let us know.
bad, we're not going to make you feel bad about saying it.
Definitely
It's just
not.
that life. Just tell
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, definitely, 100% on everything. But yeah, definitely.
Cool, awesome. So moving on to question 2. Does it reflect badly on them if they ask for more prep time? Again, I'll turn that over to Andrea.
I don't think so, no. I mean, I know that whatever I do as a dyslexic, it's going to take me that little bit longer than somebody who can read really quickly. You know, when I open up my Kindle and it says, you've got, you know, you'll be able to read this book in 13 hours. And then by the time I got to page 2, it actually says it's going to take you 30 hours. I'm like, oh yeah, I am slower than most people. So I think asking for that extra time, we aren't going to judge you on it at all.
Yeah.
If we know why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Nikki, you think?
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree with Andrea. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of covered it as well. I mean, yeah, definitely. It would never reflect badly for me. I would always want to know, you know, I think, again, you know, it's really important that actors are competent enough to talk to their agents about things like that. And their agents should also hopefully be able to reassure them that we would be completely understanding about something like that. So no, it would never reflect badly. I'd always want to know.
Yeah. And the other thing as well that I find, you know, having clients in our casting studio and working with, you know, lots of different clients, more often than not, they're amenable, you know, and they understand because, you know, they themselves might. I've worked with dyslexic directors, you know, people understand that, you know, some people need a bit more time, or, you know, I mean, the whole thing is a nervous situation anyway. When a director says, sorry to throw this at you cold, a lot of the times they mean that. You know, they genuinely mean that, and we do understand how hard that can be. So just jumping back to a previous point, if you're being offered time, take the time, but it'll never be held against you. You know, we understand if we're throwing something at you cold.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All agreed.
So on to 3. Any tips on learning lines?
This definitely needs to go to Andrea first.
As I said, I've never had to learn lines, thank the Lord, and I don't know how actors do it anyway. But when I have to read it in, it terrifies me. But I do realise that the more I do it, and the more I say the lines out loud, the more I actually know them. Although in my brain I'm saying, I don't know this, I've got to hold on to my script. But I actually do know them. So it's having that confidence to know that even when you think you don't know it, that you actually do. And holding on to the piece of paper helps me. And I hardly ever need to look at it. But then other like really practical tips that I've learned from like having to learn, you know, for exams and stuff, if I annotate the dialogue and I put little pictures next to it, I remember the pictures rather than the words. And so I'll suddenly think, oh yeah, that's the line with the daisy next to it, or something like that. Or I'll use music to help stimulate my memory for the words. So I'll learn it to a piece of music, and then when I'm there, I'll try and listen in my head to that piece of music, and it all gels into place like that, which is quite a weird thing. But for me, it works, but everyone's got to find their own way of what works for them.
Nikki, do you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously I'm not dyslexic, so I haven't had to learn in that way, but, and also not an actor and I also think it's incredible that anyone can remember their lines at all. Because I can't remember, what I'm walking into the next room to get most of the time. But, you know, I think it's the same thing, isn't it? Find what works for you, ask us to support you in giving you the time to do it in the way that works best for you, you know, and if Andrea's, I mean, tips like that or whatever other resources people use to kind of help them with that. And, you know, it's good for us to know that as well and kind of think of ways that we can do it. I mean, I know people have talked about coloured paper and things like that. I mean, often my my castings are usually paperless, so I would only maybe have one script there, and always tell everybody there aren't going to be tons and tons of scripts and stuff. But if I knew that that was a thing, that it was useful for someone to do that, then obviously I would make a point of doing that. So yeah, just to feed back into that, whatever those tools are that make it more possible for that casting to be great, use them and tell us.
On the coloured paper thing, quite often, particularly like I know in a commercial casting, you've got copies of the script already there, and no one's going to be able to put it on coloured paper for you. So I have one of these.
Oh, yeah, brilliant. Oh. Okay, clever.
Which just, because I know that I can read it better if it's it's like that, I can read it better.
Andrea, so, is it for you, is it just yellow, or is it other colours? Is it just as long as it's not white?
For me, it's any other colour. Not plain white, but just I happen to have a yellow one around, so I just have one of those in my bag.
Yeah, so that would that be really useful then for us to kind of, you know, maybe if I am going to do that, then just literally take some of those slip files, coloured slip files, and then just have them around if someone, you know, even if someone hasn't flagged it with us, it might just be useful.
And also, if you are a dyslexic actor, have one of those in your bag and your little casting kit, along with your bottle of water and your pen and everything.
And your hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
That very very current.
Sorry.
I think that's a very, very good point, Andrea, because somebody has asked about could an actor request coloured paper, and as somebody who has a studio, I think it's easy for me to say, yeah, of course we could, but sometimes when you're at somebody else's studio or you're just hiring a space somewhere, you mightn't have access immediately to, you know, coloured paper, stationery, etc.
Quality of it.
Yeah, and
what we say we'd like to provide, and the reality of what we can provide is obviously very different.
Yeah.
But that's just those plastic sheets could be a great help, you know, and a very practical solution to this, I think, you know. But one thing I would say about, sorry, Andrea, go on.
Even if you haven't got a plastic sheet, I just find just a yellow highlighter pen helps.
Just anything to lift it.
Always got one of those. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say on the learning lines things as well, especially if you're throwing it cold, don't feel you have to be word perfect. You know, a gist of the character that we're throwing at you will help. And again, director, producer, etc. will understand that you've got it cold. But, you know, it doesn't have to be word perfect. There will be a rehearsal period. There will be time between then and the shoot. So what we're asking is just because, you know, the reason you're being thrown this is the director thinks, oh, that character might work. And if you can just give a gist of it rather than beating yourself up because you're not word perfect, you know, I think, you know, learn it loose. You know, don't feel you have to get every, you know, word of it perfectly correct, especially if it's just being thrown at you. So one of the hardest things I think with any learning, you know, whether you're dyslexic or not, is the pressure you put under yourself to learn something. And if you learn it loosely in the time you have, I think it's an easier way to bring it in, because if you're sitting there going, it's not going in, it's not going in, it's not going in, you know, I can't read this cold. You know, I think that will have an adverse effect on how you're prepping it. So, as I say, always be a bit loosey-goosey with it, because I think you'll get a better read. Again, that's just my thought on it. But
what I often say normally at children's casting is, we're not testing you on getting the words right.
Yeah.
It's about your characterization. It's not about remembering words in the right order.
Exactly.
And I think as a dyslexic, because you find that something difficult to do, you put extra pressure on yourself and think that is what's required, when it actually, half the time, that isn't it.
Yeah, no, it's not a test. And I think the flow of the piece and someone getting into the character is always, I mean, you know, we have many situations where people might drop a line or change a word that kind of suits the way that they want to play that better, and you know, it's never a huge deal. I'm much more interested in seeing them in the role and improvising around it. So hopefully that's, you know, one less huge worry.
I think for actors to think about as well, auditioning, you know, in some ways, you know, you're auditioning to get the role, as it were, but there's so much more work that goes on after getting the role. So it's just that moment in time, really. It's not, you know, it's not set in stone what you do in a casting. You know, you're kind of seeing if you can work with the director and the director can work with you, and you can, you know, bring life to this character or this idea or this video or whatever it is. So I'm repeating myself again, but loosey-goosey is never a problem.
I like that one.
Like that.
So we'll move on to question 4, folks. Do you have to ask for cold reads? Send out multiple scenes and then only ask for one in the casting? So that's obviously, do we casting directors have to do this? I'll turn this over to Nikki initially. Nikki, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty much what I said earlier. I try not to do that as a general anyway. I mean, I think if I'm sending out scenes, then I know how much prep goes in. I'm always kind of big on prep for drama stuff. So I kind of think it's a bit crazy to ask someone to prep for these scenes. There might be one that they really loved more than another, and then they end up, you know, someone changing it and doing that at the last minute and giving them the other scene to do. So I try not to do that in general anyway. It's quite rare for mine that would happen, because that's usually a conversation that I'll have with the producer and the director beforehand as a general. But again, if I knew that someone was coming in with dyslexia, then I'd be even more sort of on the case of making sure that that didn't happen. And I think obviously if there's a last minute thing and we don't know, maybe we haven't got that sort of prolonged communication, and I know that's a bit of a luxury, so I'm kind of talking from that perspective. I know that isn't the case, but for me it's quite unusual to do that anyway. Mm-hmm. We usually try to stick with the scenes that we've sent out and that we're working on.
Yeah, and then I think most casting directors, we don't send out stuff that just for the sake of it. There's a reason we send out all the sides that we do. And there's often a reason in the casting session that we might either change it or say, we're only going to do one scene. Often it's because we're running out of time. Or as Brendan said earlier, we might suddenly think, actually, this person's perfect for this other role that we've just found out about. Would you have a look at that scene instead? So we're not bombarding you with extra paperwork just for the sake of it. There's a reason we're sending it.
Yeah, and I think as well, what actors have to understand is that, you know, we can advise our clients, we can advise our directors and our producers, but at the end of the day, we are working for them. And if we tell them, listen, we've got 15 minutes here and you want to do all this, it's not going to work. And sometimes an inexperienced director, you know, will send you stuff that you know will take a half an hour to go through, and you know they've got a lower budget or something, and you know they've only got 10 minutes or even 15 minutes with the actor, and you advise them of that, but then you know they might sometimes stick to their guns and say, I really want to try this scene, and then you know 2 hours in they realize we got to cut stuff. We can but advise our clients, and you know I do, and I know you guys would as well, say, you know, this is a lot of stuff, you know. Or the other thing that can happen is stuff gets rewritten. You know, if you're in the middle of doing a TV show or even in the middle of an ad campaign, stuff gets rewritten and changed, and that then may influence what happens on the day. And sometimes it's out of our control. But again, if we know beforehand that you need a bit of time, or if, you know, we know that we can switch you around, we can delay you 20 minutes, we put somebody in before you, we can do all this stuff, but again, you got to let us know so we can help, you know.
We've got the information, we can help.
Exactly. Bottom line.
If we haven't got that information, we can't help you, and we want to help you because we want you to get the job.
Yeah, I mean,
we look great.
Yeah, totally. Coming back on that, I mean, that's interesting about what you said, Andrea, about people coming in and suddenly going, oh my God, they're even more perfect for this role. I mean, that does happen. And what I try to tend to do anyway, if we have the time, and usually there's like multiple days for these kind of projects casting, I would sort of say that, you know, quite often the director will go, can we get them to come in and read as so-and-so instead? And I go, why don't we get a self-tape of that? Or why don't we, you know, try and schedule that for another day, or like you just said, later in the day. So quite often with that, if I knew someone was dyslexic, I would insist, or try my very best to insist that that happens. So I think, again, another reason to tell us, because if someone hasn't told us, you know, we can't tailor it that way.
Don't suffer in silence. Let us know, folks. Definitely let us know.
And I actually find it's quite strange, the amount of people that don't let me know. I can almost count on that hand how many people this year have told me they're dyslexic before the casting session. There must have been a lot more in those casting sessions than 4 or 5 people. So please tell me.
Well, I know that there's a lovely actor that I've seen, and I didn't have a clue until Twitter this week. And he should have told me. I would have, you know, I mean, I think hopefully it was okay and he had enough time, but it would have been, yeah, even more important to know. So.
I think it goes back to something that I know, Andrea, you and I have had in workshops that we've shared, where there's kind of the boogeyman theory of the casting director, and the fear of the casting director, which, you know, is wholly unreasonable and rubbish, because, you know, as I always say, we need you to be brilliant for me to look brilliant, because if you're not, then I'm not doing my job and I'm not getting jobs. So, you know, we're here to help. We want you to do a good audition, folks. So let us know and we can help as best we possibly can. Going up the stairs into the audition, whispering in my ear, by the way, you know, give us time to, you know, to be able to help.
Yeah, so I think, remember, we're human as well. And I think, strangely, this downtime that we're getting and everybody doing all these one-to-ones and everything, actors are starting to see us more as human beings, see what our living rooms look like and what we look like without our makeup on and with our hair,
natural hair colour.
So it's kind of breaking down the barriers a little bit and hopefully making it easier for actors to talk to us on a one-to-one human basis, rather than with any kind of sort of weirdly constructed power structure that they might have had erroneously in their head.
We all know the handshake.
I know. I think that's been the loveliest thing of this kind of bizarre horror period, is that these one-to-ones, I seem to have spent my entire life telling everyone how not scary we are, and I'm hoping that this year's grads will come out like just so much sort of stronger and without that kind of myth of, you know, these scary gatekeepers who give them, you know, nasty looks, because clearly we're so not frightening. Yeah, I'm not even frightening to my kids, so I'm certainly not frightening to actors, but yeah, I think all of this communication thing can only be a good thing. I'm really hoping that comes out of this, that we bust some of those silly myths.
Definitely myth busters. So I just want to really highlight to you folks that if you need time, ask for time, you know, and I'm not just saying, you know, sit in the studio with us for 2 minutes reading a cold script. Take the time, you know, like Andrea mentioned earlier, to get out of the waiting room. You know, go away for a good 20 minutes if you've got the time, an hour, and look at this new material. Don't rush yourself into it. If we have the luxury of giving you time, don't rush to take just to feel that you're accommodating us. Don't worry about us. We're here to accommodate you, to get you to do the correct audition.
Perfectly summed up, Brendan. Thank you.
Great.
Perfect. Nothing to add to that.
Great.
Right.
So, just to say, folks, please hit the subscribe button if you want to see any new videos on the Casting Directors Association YouTube channel. And guys, anything else before we sign off?
No, just
thanks for coming. Stay safe. See you all soon.
Stay safe, stay home, be good.